Welcome to BIM Thoughts. We are live. Well, not live for you because we're recording this, but it's live enough. And we're on the Zoomies and we're recording our faces so that it's more personable. And you can watch this on YouTube now. And Carl's great. And Dana's great. And Anthony's back.
Hey.
You know, last time you were here, Anthony.
Yeah.
I got lazy, and like a year and a half later, we came out with another BIM Thoughts, it seemed like.
Yeah.
So you were like the last guest forever.
Oh, well, let's
I mean, we had the best, and then it's like, take a break. But I don't think we're going to do that because Carl's not going to let us do that, which is fantastic. So we're all in our BIM Thought caves. Anthony's in his, what do you call your spot?
It would be the Highbar Dojo.
The Highbar Dojo. I like that. All right. So redefine yourself.
Redefine myself.
Yeah.
Wait, now I'm an entrepreneur. So excited. So much paperwork. Anyway.
So much paperwork.
Yeah, no, don't listen to me. Like, it's all romance and appearing on stage to cheering crowds when you become an entrepreneur.
So it's all sunshine and lollipops?
Really, it really is. Everybody go.
Yeah.
There's really no problems with it.
Yeah.
No, anyway, so we're what, 2.5 years into this Highbar thing. It's been actually quite a ride, a lot of fun. We've been building out the team, which is probably the best part, actually, is kind of assembling the group you want to go forward with. So, and we just announced this, so I guess I could talk about it. We just closed another round of funding.
Yay!
So we're probably we'll probably expand the team again, but we're not really sure exactly how yet, what roles we want to bring in. So we're taking a little time on that. But in any case, and meanwhile, the great thing about working in AEC is that everybody's extremely worried about confidential information. So we're doing some really cool stuff that I can't show you. No, it's funny because we're working on one project for a company, and we're like looking at the results because we're coming to the end of the project, and we're like, wow, that alone is a business. Like, just this project would be a business, and of course, the business for our customer, right? So in any case, but if people don't know what Highbar is, I will do some screen sharing.
Yay!
Talking about it because we have this exciting video format.
Yes, this technologies.
Yeah, I'm amazed every day.
Yes,
so
we're interneting.
Our meeting, and then, okay, let's bring over.
Like that. Okay, I'll have to cut out that email.
Yeah. Well, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So sorry about that.
That's okay.
In any case,
look at all those icons down there.
Oh yeah, I have a lot of applications.
You have a lot of, and you got a lot of R's down there too.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, 3. What is it? 3 supported.
Right. 3 R's is a crowd.
Yeah, and actually, that's one is active for a reason. I'll talk a little bit.
One is active for a reason. Okay, great.
Anyway, so for folks unfamiliar with me and what I'm doing now. Some folks know I was at Autodesk for about 10 years. I spent about 8 years on the Revit team on a couple of different roles. I was kind of finally the director of product management for all the Revit products, about 25 other products. I started 4 products overall at Autodesk. So Revit Server, what was collaboration for Revit and is now BIM 360 something or other, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about who listens to BIM Thoughts, and Revit LT. And then, and finally, kind of the last project I started, which I guess we're here to also talk about today, was Project Fractal. And that became something called Project Refinery, which turned into generative design for Revit, which was released inside Revit 2021. And Bill would like to know what the difference is between that and what we're doing at Highbar.
Yes, I want to know.
All right, so let's kind of, we could talk a little bit about generative design for Revit is obviously a entirely Revit-based optimization engine, which gives you a bunch of different options. Highbar has certain aspects of that, but we are entirely cloud-based. We're independent of Revit. We work off of a open source data model that unfortunately we had to create. We really, really tried to get some of the data models that are arguably proprietary in firms to become public and open source. We didn't get any takers, so we had to actually make our own. So we use an open source data model. We can talk a little bit about that. It's extensible. You can add, your own personal building objects to it. And all of this is in service to creating a generative design environment where you can combine things like what we call functions to produce design proposals like I'm showing you here. So this is a site in New York City, and we can actually just rebuild a lot of this while we're talking here. But what you're seeing here is a building on a site in New York, and there's some analysis going on here around what views you can see from that height of the building. A lot of this stuff is adjustable, but I wanted to show the kind of fun part is if I just go to this this function here and just isolate it in context, and we zoom way in, you can see that we've got the beginnings of a piping system. It's
wow, with hangers and everything.
With hangers and everything.
Wow.
And that is actually an imported STL of a Hilti hanger. So Hilti makes available like 3D assets, a lot of their catalog. So we just grabbed one of these to demonstrate that we could, include that. But the thing is, we're working, at this kind of scale, this macro, urban scale.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And all the way down to, this very particular device inside a building.
So we've gone from a mile down to a hangar.
Yeah, exactly.
And then hangar to a mile.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm trying to let our audio people know what's going on as well.
Oh, of course, yeah. Not everybody's watching. Sorry for this.
Not everybody's watching, but that's okay. I will be in charge of that.
Yes, I will describe more as we.
That is okay.
If you're not.
It looks like Ghostbusters is in there trying to get rid of some ghosts.
Right, and anyway, we can turn that off so it's not so. Let us. Anyway, so but let's if we take this apart, we essentially got on the left of the screen. Watching, if you're just listening, there's a pile of things with different names, and they've got things like called envelope by sketch, levels by envelope, structure by envelope, etc. And it's just a naming convention we use to talk about dependencies. So essentially, let's break everything here. Let's just take envelope by sketch out of the workflow, and all of a sudden everything's going to panic because there's a lot of stuff that wants an envelope, a building envelope. So let's give it a new one. So let's add a function, and we'll add envelope by sketch back in. Now it's asking for some input. We'll draw a new polygon, and let's do something that's funkier here. So we'll draw like a, oops, maybe not draw something right inside the other building.
Yeah, that would be bad.
But if we give it, kind of a different shape here, and just open up some stuff on some space on the site and save that. And so what happens is here that we start generating a new building fabric, and then all the other functions start contributing their piece to the proposal, and with some greater or lesser success. So if you're watching, you can see that my marksmanship has somewhat failed, and I've embedded one building inside an existing building, which generally the building commission.
We'll call it an addition.
Yes, it's an addition. Yeah.
Yeah.
In any case, but these are all examples that we have on our site just to show people the kind of thing you could do with Highbar. Although we've gotten some good reactions from folks on some of these functions that they find that they can use. And so the thing is about these, they're all combinable. I'm going to switch over to kind of a more abstract look at this.
Okay.
So essentially, let's bring up in presentation form, because what would Zoom be without PowerPoint, really?
That's right.
So, taking the audience back, to math class,
Mhm.
enjoyed it, right? So everybody remembers what functions were. You put some numbers in one end, some other numbers come out the other end. We do the same thing. The numbers are various kinds of inputs that you can apply, but the output can be something like a structural grid. And we can actually show that in the example I was just going through. And we can also, though, use as an input the, like a building envelope, and all that stuff links together in what we call workflows. And that's why, folks who are watching the video, like, things started to panic when I pulled out the envelope by sketch, because things want an envelope to produce like the structure or the floors or anything else. And the nice thing about this, though, is that, if you've got one way of making an envelope and you've got another function that does it a different way, you can like swap that out and everything else stays the same. So if we do that, again, if we take this out and let's move our building next door, we're just going to slam it right down into the park.
Good idea.
Yeah, because, that'll be easily approved.
Oh yeah. Well, we bought the park. BIMThoughts,
Sorry.
sponsorships, and
Sorry,
we were able to do that.
Sorry, Manhattan Public. You're now getting another. You're getting a building in the middle of your park.
That's right. Look at that.
This is another a building just made by a center line and a few other of these input parameters here. One of the fun things about this, so we talked a little bit about option generation. So for things that have variable values in Highbar, you can turn on this thing called sample range. And then because we're based in the cloud, we can actually spin up as many servers as we want. We have an arbitrary limit right now on 20 parallel servers, but it's just as fast to produce 20 options of something as it is to produce one, because it's all parallel. We have not a whole lot of variability here on some of these, but here's a nice, like, tiny skinny building we can just throw on there, a nice short one. So you can instantly, change out your options, and then all the other functions will catch up by, doing their pieces, like putting in the structure, which we can isolate, like so, or the facade or anything else that you want to see. So each of these things is contributing to one proposal. So one of the things that we also know around this is we also probably should be compatible with Revit. I'm going to start something, and this will take a minute or two, but we can try to see the results of this in a pre-baked example. So everybody who knows Revit is probably familiar with the commercial example.
The advanced sample file.
Yes, the advanced sample file. So I'm just going to send all of that to Highbar. Now what's going to happen here is we're just going to save something out, and we'll call this BIMThoughts.
Great name.
Because we must do that.
Yes.
And
because we're thinking about BIM right now.
Okay. So
hey, that was quick.
Yeah, that was kind of like distressingly quick, honestly, but let's see what happens.
Okay. You must have a new machine.
Yeah, it must be. I'm going to start a new, by the way, fancy new website.
Look at that. Really that is fancy.
Yeah, our website's really been boring for a couple of years, and finally we hired somebody who knew what to do about it.
Wow, which one of those guys?
Actually, it was our newest employee, Serena.
Look at that. Great job, Serena. We're proud of you.
Yeah, we're all very proud of her. And we've, as some folks may know, we've been rating WeWork. So Andrew Human joined us from WeWork, as did Serena.
Yeah, we got a WeWorker as well at LPA.
Yep. There you go. Yep. They're it's a good group over there. So in any case, let's sign in here. Let's do a new workflow. And so all the stuff I'm showing here for folks who are actually watching is available to you. You can try this stuff out yourself. and I can tell you where to find some of the example files I'll use.
Great.
So we've got this thing called JSON to model. Now let's see if that
Mm-hmm.
export was okay. The export's kind of new. So hey, let's see if it worked. Let's see how big the file is. Oh, it's big
Yeah.
enough. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's drop that in there and let's see what happens.
I'm sure it's going to be great.
Could be, might not, but I do have some baked stuff that will work. And if I might have switch over to Chrome to make this work, because Firefox sometimes is a little. Let's drop the commercial one that I didn't just export.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is Firefox. Fortunately,
Yeah. Don't watch the man behind the curtain.
Fortunately, we've got Chrome running over here, so let's.
Okay. All right. So Chrome is the way to go.
Yeah, so we do most of our testing on Chrome, and then every now and then I open up Firefox and find something and I file an issue.
Okay.
So.
Hey.
Yep.
Your password's the same as mine, all dots.
Oh, well, then I did it incorrectly. Here you go.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I know this is boring for the our studio audience.
So you're using the JSON exporter as a way to export from Revit and bring it into Highbar, which we're going to see and hear about here shortly.
Yeah,
but does that
and it's all human readable. Yeah, go ahead.
And so does that mean that other platforms, say like the new and improved Format that works in the JSON environment, can do that same functionality?
Quite possibly. We have a JSON format we use. It's standard JSON, but of course, like any
XML.
open format like IFC, people are going to use it in a certain way.
Yeah.
But there's kind of a continuous idea through all of this. Like we use JSON, it's an open format, anybody can use it. All the graphics you see inside the window, it's all it's 3JS using the GLTF format, which is also incidentally really good for dropping into VR. So we tried to pick technologies that were, here we go. Yeah, definitely something in Firefox I'll have to file.
Okay.
So here's
well, JSON isn't like IGES or DXF or something like that. Because it's more akin to like XML.
Right, exactly. You can write anything into it.
You can write it, yeah.
Yeah, so it has to know how to read it, right?
Correct.
So,
it's just the syntax is what defines JSON, not the data.
Yeah, and incidentally, like Speckle is kind of the same thing, right? It depends. It depends on the perimeter ends, at least last I checked, to interpret the data that's flowing through it. And so anyway, we've got our Revit model in here.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to also add in, we're going to find walls in this because then we're going to do something cool. Let's add a function called panels from walls, and we'll let that run, and we'll also put in prefabricated panels. So for our studio audience, what we've done here is added in two other functions, one that purportedly breaks walls into panels, and another one that actually uses those panels for something else. So let's, so if I open this up, wow, everything. There we go. Okay.
There we go.
We're back. Okay, so if you open this up, this actually has some settings on what the panel length is, and I'm going to turn on color coding and then isolate this guy so we can just look at him alone. And so, what this other function has done is taken the incoming Revit data, right, the wall data, and then broken it up into individual panels. And so, what the one below that has done is taken each of those panels and framed out each of them, and it takes about 5 seconds to draw it. And so you could see that as on the construction side, if you had a bunch of procedures for taking an arbitrary model and processing it in a way that is compatible with your delivery methods, right? So maybe you're deciding to do it either cast in place concrete or precast, and you have functions to kind of show you how that might work. You could inject it into this workflow and then examine your options here. Right. And of course, the same thing that's available on most Highbar functions. You can turn on sample range, and then we'll start creating a bunch of alternatives. In this case, just changing the stud spacing.
Okay. So when you turn those into panels, then I said, okay, these walls, we want to make them and put some metal studs in them.
Yeah.
And then it took whatever you defined as those metal studs, threw them in the wall. Yep. And now you're saying, okay, figure out different ways maybe to optimize the metal studs for maybe less studs or whatever.
Yeah, everything we're seeing here is just procedural. So we have just, within the last couple of months, we haven't released it yet, but we did implement an optimization engine that uses a genetic algorithm. It is kind of not ready for public consumption yet because it's rather complicated to set up. So we're working on simplifying that so that you need a degree to actually do something with it. But yeah, I mean, and this right now would be like a key difference, I would say, between generative design for Revit and what's available to folks on Highbar now, because what I'm showing you here is kind of the equivalent of a Dynamo script or a Grasshopper script, and we talked about that too, in that there's a set procedure that it's running through. Generative design for Revit is actually also doing optimization goals, and that's something we're going to release, I'm sure, before the end of the year. So we'll start adding that. One of the differences that we're going to be introducing is, and you know, Autodesk doesn't tell me its plans anymore, so maybe they're going to do the same thing. But we're going to have the capability to have multiple algorithms. So folks that really get into like optimization and machine learning, like if you start looking into it, you find that different algorithms are better at different types of problems. So it's good to have a library of those that you can use. And I have to say, this is not my background, but it is our CTO's background because he spent 5 years at Google. And so those folks are all about the machine learning and the optimization stuff. So,
they're all about the data.
Yeah. So we've been kind of leaning on our CTO quite a bit to start implementing some of this stuff.
Cool.
In any case, so I mean, you know, major differences. You know, we're massively parallel in the cloud, and generative design for Revit is on the desktop. I'd be speaking out of turn to say if I'm sure as to whether they're doing any kind of parallel processing or not. But in any case, we think that this kind of thing is just a lot better to do on the cloud because you know, nice things you can do immediately are things like just share the whole workflow to folks, or you know, share it to just like one domain, so everybody at your company can get it, but nobody outside can. You know, it just makes it a lot easier for collaboration if you're already on something that's connected to everybody's device.
So one of the things that when I've gone to all of the conferences and looked at generative design or iterative design is you need to be a programmer in order to figure this out. You've got to be able to, you got to be like Dana. You got to be someone who knows Dynamo very well, and then plug in all of the things into the design or into the generative design or iterative design software, and then it runs through the paces of moving all the sliders for you. Is that still the case with the stuff today, or has it moved past that?
It depends what you're trying to do. You know, for example, I brought this one up because I could kind of tell where you're going. So this is a pair of functions here. One's called program by CSV. It's got some options. One's called plan.
And this looks like a warehouse to me.
Yeah, actually, well, we'll talk about a little bit about what it is, but let's go in another folder here in our examples. And so this Highbar function info thing is also a GitHub repository. So
okay.
You can go and find this and grab all these files and try this stuff out that I'm showing you. But opening one of these in Excel, because it's easier just to look at them that way.
Sure.
CSV.
CSV is Excel.
And what you'll see in here is kind of a typical building, something like a typical building program, right? So we've got
Okay.
a suite name, a number, associated department, the name of the room, the quantity of the room, desired area in meters, and the ratio. And it's pretty
Okay.
generic here. Right?
Is everything you do in meters, or is it just that happens to be the sample data?
We do everything internally in meters, so we actually use standard units throughout. So that's all metric, but of course it's just a matter of multiplying for other. And so we're actually working on something for a customer right now. It's a global customer, and they need to see things both in square meters and square feet, depending on the region they're working in. So we have that capability to switch back and forth.
Okay, so you can switch back and forth at will.
Yep.
Okay.
So if I grab this, let's grab this clinic thing, which is a much smaller program than what we're showing here. And what's happening is it's using a bunch of rules to lay out this stuff. And let's put on some names so we can actually see, understand what we're looking at here. What's going on is there's this thing that turns that CSV into a building program, and that gives you some options to manipulate it. So for example, we could change the suite sequence to what's listed inside that CSV. So in other words, it's gonna just run from the top to the bottom and say, I'm gonna place this suite, and then inside that suite, then you have an option for how do you want to place the room. So just the kind of vanilla way to do it is listed, right? So it's gonna start at the top and just run through linearly and just place them as it can according to the algorithm. The algorithm is down here, and it lets you do all kinds of things to start getting different options. So you could send it up to multiple levels if it can't find a place to place something. You can turn on diagonal adjacency, and you start varying your results in that fashion, right? And so there's I've spent like a couple of hours sometimes just like playing with these and looking at all the different options you can get. They tend toward a bit of similarity, but you can start.
Yeah, I don't see much difference in those.
Yeah, when you start sampling range, and so it starts toggling some of these on and off, then it's vary a little more. Don't make a liar out of me. There we go.
There we go.
So so these are ways of kind of rapidly exploring different options and approaches. And then of course the question is, okay, I've got a thing I like, what happens? And so something we're working on that you can try out if you download the Revit plugin and you want to jump through a lot of hoops because it's still in beta, but I can show you instead of video of it working at its best. So that framing example I showed you, we also plugged it into something called the Highbar Hub. And so we're going to generate an option on the right and then give it a couple of seconds in Revit, and it comes in.
Look at that.
Revit. And if we change it over on the right in Highbar, then we stream it down into Revit with a tighter stud spacing.
So we just put all the studs into the regular sample file.
Yeah. So what we've done right now, the state of the plugin is this is merely a preview. So we're actually drawing this inside Revit, but those are not real Revit elements yet.
Oh, okay.
So the next stage we'll do is the bake it button. Call it, and we will actually bake it as real Revit entities right into the model. So
right now it's still cookie dough. It's still good, but it's not a cookie.
Yeah. And the idea is that, you should be able to like try a bunch of design options, see how they're going to deliver into your model, and then finally, for real, send it where you can go and document it and such.
Wow.
So the other, I think the other, difference between what we're doing and right now what generative design is doing in Revit is, fundamental to what Highbar is, or what we hope it will become, is that we're trying to crowdsource this, right? We don't want to sit in Hyper constantly like making new functions for people to use and try to be the answer, for any given sector, right? We don't want to be like they have the best, Hyper makes the best warehouse designer or shelf deployer or whatever it is. We do all this stuff as examples because we know that the real expertise is in the industry. And that trying to capture the expertise of an entire industry is not the job of any single company. It's impossible, right? So like what the software industry does, like there's no software company that's trying to make all your software, right? Like everybody kind of specializes and then it comes together on something called a Windows box, and you can use them all and you get a gazillion icons on the bottom and like all this kind of stuff. But everybody is building something to a certain set of standards, but everybody is delivering something out of their specialty. So what we're trying to do here is provide a forum, essentially an operating system for AEC, where anybody can write something to appear on Hyper. To your earlier point, Bill, for some of that stuff, yeah, it would really help to be a programmer, but I can show you a couple other things over here. Hang on. PowerPoint is not cooperating, so we're getting the logo. Let me flip up here. So we've done a couple of things in the last few months since we talked. So one of them that might be interesting to folks is we have a Grasshopper package so that you can actually make nodes. And here, I'm going to slow that down a little bit because I keep meaning to redo this video. But you'll see in the upper left here, folks who are watching, that this rainbow facade is being made inside Rhino using Grasshopper. And so this is actually one of Andrew Newman's things. So you can see that with some these pink outline nodes, because pink's kind of one of our colors.
Yeah.
You make a Grasshopper script with these extra nodes that take inputs and outputs for the model, and you can take that Grasshopper script and just drop it right into Hyper, and we will turn it into a Hyper function that, because it has those extra nodes around the perimeter, is compatible with everything else in Hyper. Yeah. So you can take something that, take our friend envelope by sketch here. Andrew's going to draw a quick one, and then plug this other Grasshopper script and wrap that envelope in this new facade, and he'll turn on the pretty colors here. So folks who are kind of comfortable in Grasshopper have an avenue in. Wow. And then the other thing that we think is unique so far, but I had been thinking about for a long time since I left Autodesk, is with all this stuff and like Revit family content and scripts and everything, and all this is great capture of expertise, but something we used to say a lot in Autodesk is that our biggest competition for engineering customers is Excel, because every engineering firm, and actually quite a lot of architecture firms and beyond, use Excel as a general computation tool. So you can turn an Excel spreadsheet into a Hyper function. This is essentially, dressing up a spreadsheet with some extra naming stuff. So you say some cells are inputs and some cells are outputs. And just like with the Grasshopper script, you can drag and drop it into a window. We will process it into a Hyper function, and you can use it in a workflow.
Great.
So we're trying to make this, we're trying to go to where the industry is, not trying to get everybody to come to whatever idea we have. So we're doing our best to try to get out, to help people capture the expertise that they have in their firm in some way that they can distribute it. Because, one thing that especially folks who have been kind of on the IT side, know is that somebody comes up with a really good spreadsheet to do something, and so they email it to their colleagues. Then, oh, they need to make a change or fix a bug or something, and they send another one in email, and then which version should I be using? It's the and it's not great, right? So we've also
we have that problem as well with project planning. We have all this great software to do project planning, and they're still doing it in Excel.
Yeah, and I won't say which firm that I know does facade design inside Excel. I mean, graphically.
Really?
I've seen it.
Sort of like that guy from Japan who draws in Excel.
Yep. So, and this is the thing, like, for a lot of uses, Excel's a great tool. I've been impressed with it since Microsoft came out. It always seemed to be actually the best part of MS Office. And so people gravitate toward it. One project I know of that happened in Autodesk in conjunction with a customer involved a spreadsheet that one person at the customer had maintained for 30 years. And it was excellent at predicting a budget for
I bet.
a particular kind of project, because he just kept adjusting it and adjusting it and adjusting it. And
that's funny.
That's the kind of thing that you want to capture and make sure that everybody in your company is using. And every time you change it, you want to know that they have their latest one. And so this is
right.
So we have gotten. There was a period probably about a year ago where there's probably a lot of comparisons to be found, I think, between what's become generative design for Revit and what we're doing. And I think we've kind of diverged from just the idea of optimizing a design into something that we think is a lot broader, right? We're trying to provide a place where the industry can exchange expertise in a way that actually also protects your IP, right? Because the thing is, with some of the popular ways that people have of recording expertise, send your Excel file, send your Dynamo script, send your Grasshopper script to your colleague, and that colleague has everything in there, right? I mean, they've got it now. In Highbar, once you have a function up here, all it's doing is listening for inputs and putting out certain outputs. But as far as everybody else is concerned, it's a black box. Could be positive, could be negative. If you're an engineer, you hate black boxes, right?
Right.
But the point is that a firm who's producing something has the possibility to collaborate with colleagues without giving away everything they've done, as long as they agree on what the kind of data medium of exchange is going to be. And we didn't quite realize the strength of this until just before the last AU. And of course, this is our first AU booth, right? So, we're scrambling up until the last minute to have everything we want, on the screens and everything. And so Ian and I, and it was just Ian and I, and Matt had just joined a couple 4 months before, are making all the examples, that will go on screen. And we're at this point, we're like, Ian's like, I'll do the facade. And I'm like, okay, what do you need? He said, I need levels with a height and a perimeter. I'm like, great, I'll give you that. And after that, we didn't have to talk anymore, right? All I had to know was that he needed a certain output, and then he could write the rest, assuming that he was going to get it.
That's funny.
We kind of realized, in the crucible of the scramble to get ready for the show, that we'd hit on something that felt like the right kind of collaboration, at least for developers.
It's funny. On my first AU as a vendor with BIM9, we had the booth all set up. Everything was working perfectly, and we had the iPads going, and through the Wi-Fi, we brought our own Wi-Fi, so we thought it would be great. Doors open, and 10,000 people come in with phones, and the Wi-Fi shut down because Wi-Fi doesn't work when you have that many people.
Yeah.
And so we had to scramble to figure out what to do. And the next day got 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi because that was brand new at the time. Put that in, everything was great. So yeah, I can relate to that story of what do we do?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was actually like last year, and of course, like we showed up with our monitors, and I'd forgotten the rails, to mount them to the stand, and so like we're
Yeah.
driving around Vegas to like
Trying to find rails.
yeah,
That's funny.
and it all works out, but
It all works out. Yeah.
the fun
A
scramble.
little stress. Dana, I am sure you are chopping at the bit with a question.
No.
Well, he actually answered my question about the Revit plugin. That seems really, really awesome. And I can't wait for that to get on my computer so that I can play with it. Because it does seem like kind of like what Bill was alluding to, it seems like just the education that you need to be able to run some of these tasks, right? It's like having to go in there and understand all of these, just being a new program. I joke on here all the time how I don't know Bluebeam because there's so many buttons, right? It's like just having to get into a new program, into a new interface and learn something. I think bringing it into Revit and having it as a button just obviously opens it up to so many additional users. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
But no, I think that this is obviously really fantastic. I've watched Highbar kind of grow a little bit, and I think that where it's going is really fantastic. One thing that I'm kind of questioning is, especially kind of the current atmosphere and everybody thinking about going to work and maybe starting to go back to work.
Yep.
I'm sure you guys have gotten a lot of requests with social distancing and those types of. Case got really excited for those of you not watching here. The button there.
We did not.
COVID-19 furniture plan.
Yep, we did not write this one. This was somebody, Jeroen van Lies, created this. Let's see if it works. I've seen it break.
Okay.
Find out. I don't know what it needs, so let's see.
Let's live on the edge.
Live on the edge. Let's take out location. Okay. Okay. It wants a polygon. So.
All right. You know how to draw those.
I think so. Let's see.
Look at that polygon.
And see what happens.
The little right angle symbols that come up when you draw are amazing. Those are so awesome.
Gotta love the locks.
When Matt gets back from vacation, I'll tell him. He invented that. So yeah, so this is the thing for folks to try out. Also, Highbar or Grasshopper. We actually have to run, Grasshopper on the cloud. So it will take longer, assuming this one works. It will take. Yep, no, it's not going to work tonight.
Well, that's the beauty of live demos, right?
Yeah, that's So yeah, this one timed out. It's possible we can try one more time when I make a much smaller polygon and see if that doesn't fix it, because we will shut down a function that tries to run for more than 30 seconds. However, one of the things that we're going to add is what we call metered results, which will let you run a longer process, because there are there we go. There are optimization processes that can take a long time. So this person, he's got an actual solver running inside his Grasshopper.
That looks seriously optimized as well.
Yeah. And then he's got, his various, we could do the quadro, and let's sample our range and our table widths and our minimal allowed distance. He has 2. So he's got anywhere from 1 to 3 meters. This is going to take a little bit, but in any case, this is actually an example of optimization going on that he's just built into his Grasshopper script. So you can do that.
Wow, look at that.
That we haven't built it into the platform. So, but yeah, so this has come up, and obviously it's kind of the topic of the moment. And some of the work we're actually doing with one of our customers is they actually have real data about this stuff, and what office occupancy will be like if you're actually trying to plan for safety compared to pre-COVID and all this kind of stuff. And it's just fascinating. And, here we have a lot of different options on how to lay out
Yeah.
our COVID compliant office, from quite dense with only a meter apart, I would
Mhm.
to quite.
Don't sneeze on that one.
And, of course, for some of the work we're doing right now for customers, we'll start introducing things like being able to bring in content and
Mhm.
Revit or other places.
This is great.
So this person is actually just making kind of procedural content, I believe.
Mhm.
But in any case, yeah. So again, the point is, this being, let me open up the about here. Like we didn't do this; it just surprised us, right? That somebody had done this, and then we found it on here, and we're like, hey, and we're playing with it.
Well, a golf clap to Mr. Van Lith.
Yes.
Right.
So,
I'm sure he listens.
yeah, and I'm sure his stock just went up in the industry.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, and I mean, we're going to see a lot of different things with these types of things, right? I mean, especially, I would say with new buildings with, directional stairwells and, different things like that we're going to see for, just even wayfinding through a building. I mean, trying to get people to go the right direction. I just read that they opened up the Washington Monument finally, because of the earthquakes and all that in Virginia. They had to close it down, and then COVID. But when they opened it up upstairs, you can only go one direction upstairs because of the social distancing and all of that. So it just opens up all different types of computational different types of things that we can look into.
Yeah, and I haven't returned to the MFA since the pandemic really started, but I understand that that's Museum of Fine Arts in Boston for folks. But yeah, they have some similar plan and timed entry and of course these are things that are, I'm going to guess, for most venues are not mathematically determined. They're basically kind of taking a good guess and hopefully with some consulting engineers to talk to them about air circulation. And that's a whole nother thing. I mean, it's more complicated, which is why I think we haven't seen it yet. But, right now everybody's just saying, crank up the air circulation as high as it'll go to help. But I'm assuming that there's a point that we're going to actually have some math behind that to figure out what the right air.
Right.
Definitely certain people have it easier, right? I hate to turn around in a museum, personally. Like when I get to a corridor where it actually forces me to turn around, I'm like, this is a really poorly laid out museum.
Yeah, I just want to keep exploring. I don't want to go back.
Turn around.
Yeah. Been there, done that. Great.
That stuff is so yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. That was so last hour.
That was so last hour. That's great.
But yeah, so we're trying to and I don't I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, of course, Autodesk, especially the Dynamo team, really does its best to kind of foster a community with the package manager and Zach Crone and Solomore do a really nice job in kind of being inclusive around that. So they're definitely, make their efforts around community. We are too. I think there's so much expertise that we could automate as long as we can then intervene in the results to improve it as humans with judgment. Another thing we have on tap before the end of the year, but that it doesn't, like, the more the merrier, right? The more people in whatever instruments they're using or selling or whatever it is who will like help out on this industry-wide project to capture the best way to make buildings. Like, I'm there with bells on, cheering them on. I mean, shout out to like some of our friends in the industry, out at Spacemaker AI and Test Fit. And anyone, Archistar, Placeful. I mean, there's a bunch of folks out there doing some really nice stuff, and more power to them, because this is a big project. We're trying to do our best to speed it up, because one of the things that we see, in inside firms that do stuff like this is somebody's got a good idea. They want to do something like, a COVID furniture planner. And then without using something else, they're like, okay, what do I need to do? Like, let me learn web programming. Let me learn how to use scalable cloud computation. And you have this like terrible like investment of time in like, and I'll just say it, essentially in commodity technology that hasn't been that needs to be put together in a certain way so that you can just try out your idea. And so what we're trying to do is provide a platform where you don't have to learn all that other stuff, that you can just concentrate on capturing your own business logic, your own building expertise, and then, leave the how do I draw stuff on the internet problem to us, right? So, and things, just little things like, if I take this guy out here, like one of the things when we first started talking to firms as Highbar, everybody said, well, we always start with a location, and so we know, and we would see that, everybody around the world is making their very own personal location picker. And, it's just a misapplication of resources, like, why do we need two? I mean, maybe we need two, but do we need, 2 dozen?
Right.
So you can pick a location. And of course, from what we're doing here, like, we didn't go out and map Tokyo and New York, right, to use on Highbar. We're using Mapbox, right? And we didn't have to go to Mapbox and say, hey, wouldn't it be great if you pulled up all of Mapbox and put it back on Highbar, and then people will be able to use Mapbox on. No, there's a little function, and it just calls out to the Mapbox service with a location, and it gets back the context, and we render it. And so that's the idea, is that we can provide a forum where a lot of these kind of different services can talk to one another in a common language. And so, and that you don't have to piece that mosaic together yourself, right?
Right.
You can
hire the expert, just like architects do when they hire a structural designer or structural engineer to do the structural.
Yeah, or an acoustic designer or something, right?
Or all that stuff. Hire someone who knows
Acoustic
how
consultant,
to do.
right?
Right. A
Like
kitchen consultant.
anything.
Right. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a blast seeing how far Highbar has progressed over the time. And I think you ought to change your thing from purple or pink to color number 6, is what you should call it.
Number 6. Okay.
Color number 6. That's for my AutoCAD friends who know what the color numbers are.
And let me just say that, like, right now, everything's free on Highbar. We will turn on a paywall at some point, but there'll always be a free tier. So don't be afraid to sign up. And
so maybe a tier that'll give you more than 30 seconds.
Yes, that's possible too. And and it's actually amazing how much you can get done in 30 seconds in a single function. But
in
any case,
it is.
So please feel free to try it out. We love feedback. You find me on the internet. I'm pretty findable on LinkedIn. We have a Discord server, which most of the discussion on there is actually not about Highbar. There's a great channel called The Future of the Professions. There's another one of What Are You Working On? And there's some really lively discussions that go on in there. There's about 500 professionals on there.
Great. I'll make sure to join that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you now that we're doing this again real soon.